Hi everyone, I'm going to be working on curly hair today. Obviously, scissor. We're going to jump in here with the scissor. We're traditionally known as a razor company, but I'm going to show you how the razor influenced our scissor work. As you can see, our model has quite some length to it. Pretty consistent curl. The ends are definitely in need of some help. By bringing this up, is gonna fill in the whole shade. It's quite flat up top, as you can see. The idea is to work some concave layers through the top. I'm gonna be working from the inside out throughout the whole haircut. And again, you're gonna see how the razor has influenced all of this.
So thank you to everyone who's joining. We've already got people from all over the world. Hello Malaysia, hello Pennsylvania, and everywhere in between. Again, we are with Mark Anthony, who is one of our lead stylists and educators at Bumble & Bumble. We are here in the library of the Bumble & Bumble University, and Mark is demonstrating our scissor cutting technique on curly texture. So Mark, explain a little bit about that technique that you just did to get rid of that length there.
So again, working from the inside out. These first sections, I'm analyzing the curl, I'm seeing what's happening. So it's not I'm gonna cut 3 inches off and that's it. We're going through it, adjusting. That'll set me up for what I continue to do throughout. So again, working from the inside out. First section, I'm keeping it stronger as we would. Second, third, fourth, all those sections on the occipital is where you have the opportunity to get in there and remove some weight. But you will see me starting more in the midsection. Again, whereas now, establishing my length, I'm keeping it towards the ends.
Wow, we've got people joining from Scotland, France, all different parts of Asia. Hello, everybody. Give us a shout out. Where are you joining us from? And also, if you happen to have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the comments section. I'm going to be monitoring questions as Mark Anthony is doing his cutting. And again, if you're just now joining us, this is Mark Anthony, and he is one of our lead educators at Bumble & Bumble. And we are here at the Bumble University in New York, and happy to be with you all.
So I'm taking sections that are on the thicker side. She has finer hair, so I'm not too concerned about taking too much. 4 sections or so, I should be through the whole back area here. Again, working up towards the occipital. This is an area I can start getting in a little deeper to get some of that weight out. Again, slightly moving towards the center of the shaft. Not quite there yet, of course. Again, these textures, especially if you haven't worked on them before, there's trial and error, right? You're playing around, you're responding to what you're seeing. So that's why you might see me take a second shot at it to see what's going on. Amazing things happen as you release weight, and that's what we're so much about here. The razor teaches us so much about distribution of weight. How far you can push haircuts till they collapse. The razor gets a bad rap for obvious reasons, whether it's lack of education, abuse. You have a lot of bad connotations that come with the razor. Clients might come to you and say, oh, I had a bad razor cut before, I really don't want that used.
So 2 questions. One, if you could speak up a little bit louder. And then the other thing is, how damp is her hair?
So her hair is pretty damp. She just was washed. We used the BB curl line for that. I have prepped her, which is just a nice detangler. adding a bit more moisture. I'll be using that. It's drying up quite quickly. So I'll be continually using the prep to add moisture, to add a little bit of conditioning. Is that loud enough?
Yeah, can you guys hear better? Let us know. And actually, we got asked, what comb are you using?
This is a traditional comb. There's nothing fancy. I like a larger comb, a sturdy comb.
I'm trying to focus on it.
Smaller combs, for me, you're a little bit too close into the head, whereas a larger comb, again, not only the sturdiness to pull through textures, but especially if you're close in the head, you're able to remove your hand from the area you're working on. Sometimes they feel a little bit cumbersome for people that are used to smaller combs, but there's certain instances where you really see the benefit to a sturdier comb. But also goes with saying, I like a longer shear too, so maybe they have something that has something to do with it. I've never been a fan of the shorter shears. That's just preference, of course.
I love the movement that you're getting already. And this technique where you're coming down onto
Inside
the
out.
hair. Yeah, so explain a little bit more about cutting inside out. What do you mean by that?
So if we were using the razor, inside out, we're working towards our length.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that, again, our razor, it's what you do. Sometimes you're working a little more of a blunt line, keeping the perimeter strong. Sometimes you're going deep and pulling out large amounts of weight. It's through that we learn a lot of weight distribution.
Nice.
So the first time I saw somebody do this was here. It was in my apprenticeship over 20 years ago. And that memory just came up from our Scottish friend watching. So the man is Howard McLaren. Him and his brother were amazing mentors to so many of us. And I was assisting him. And again, most often the razor is used. And here, he starts working out the length with this scissor. And I found it quite fascinating. And it wasn't for a while, many years later, that I really kind of grasped what he was doing. That's kind of the process of our apprenticeship here. You work through these 5 haircuts with the scissor. And then you graduate to working with the razor. Once you graduate to the floor, you then get to explore further with your scissor. So it's this, circular sort of process. Start with the scissor and with the razor, and then you realize how much it has altered your scissor cutting. Visual. It's definitely something you're looking at the transparency. The white cape is beautiful to see because you can see what's going on, right? The balance, a lot of times these textures, these curls come in where the bottom is so fragmented, you can see right through it. The client wants to keep everything long as possible. So it's typically quite easy to come to some terms. Oops.
Good catch. Mm.
In those instances, I spin them around and I have them look into a small mirror to kind of grasp what I'm seeing. A lot of times they've never seen it before, or it's been years since they've looked at the back of their head, and then they say, oh, I see it. Find a happy medium, and off you go. Now, one important piece of information, my model does not blow this out. She wears this curly, So it's a good piece of information to understand, right? Consultation is key. Ask questions, ask so many questions. Really get in there. Understand what your clients do, how they operate, the products they use, of course. Quite often it shows you what's needed.
Roxanne Markham says she loves this technique. She uses it as a natural way to create some layers.
We're going to get into that. It was a picture our model showed us, and it reminded me a little bit of a diamond shape. There was layers throughout the top, probably a concave layer going on. So I'm going to work off of that thought, just to build the weight through the sides, take the weight off the root. You can see how fast her hair is drying. With that said, I don't often like to work too wet.
Why is that?
Without a doubt, I'm more of a dry hair cutter than saturated. You can see the shape. The wetter it is, the more you can lose your visuals. All that weight's pulling down. I can't see how it's going to bounce up.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably be the last time I dampen the back down.
The benefit of using prep is that it is lighter than water, so it's going to get the hair damp in the level of dampness that you want it without stretching it or making it longer.
And actually, I'm going to let that be for now. I'm going to go into the front. And again, keeping things quite simple. I have no predetermined length that I'm going to start her fringe with. I shouldn't say fringe. That might. We're going to start with the face frame right around the chin. I'm going to ease up to that. Again, not being too familiar with her curl pattern. I see it's not going to spring up tremendously, so obviously that's going to guide me. But nonetheless, I'm going to take my time. It's quite an easy area to shorten up if need be.
Again, if you guys are just now joining, we are with Mark Anthony at the House of Bumble in New York City. Mark Anthony is one of our lead educators and has been a stylist at our Bumble flagship salon in New York City for 21 years. And he is demonstrating his approach to creating a nice, soft, movable, curly, textured haircut with scissors to replicate what one would get if they were to use the razor. Now, at Bumble, we're known for using the razor, but it's not necessarily a tool that's suited for everybody. So Mark is showing us how we can do that with the scissor. Hello from Laos. So explain this technique of what looks like slide cutting but is not slide cutting.
Yeah, very good point. We don't encourage slide cutting, true slide cutting. Every time I walk my scissor, talk my scissor down the hair, there's movement. There's constant movement. I'm always cutting the hair.
Why are you doing that and not slide cutting?
I don't want to grade the curls anymore. I don't want to create any more frizz. We see there's color in there. You know, there's heat that's probably gone to this hair over the years. You know, these ends are 2-3 years old, right? So I always want to be cutting. It's probably why I chose the scissor today over the razor. It's not often I cut curly hair with the razor all the time. Sometimes I'll do my initial wet cut with the razor, and then I'll go back in and detail after styling. I'm huge for detailing sometimes far too long after the hair has been dried. I tried to behave myself today.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing we focus on when we're working our face frame is that C shape, we say, right? Keeps our corner strong. You have a predetermined starting point, right? You can always dig in a little deeper, exiting, keeping that corner strong. Now, what you're seeing a lot now is there's a lot of shadows, right? You're over-directing, we're bringing up, we're cutting off the corner. It's essentially what's happening there. And in turn, it's creating a point in the back. With keeping that corner strong, everything stays square in the back across it. So that's a big determining factor. I know we're getting asked to create that V. And then, in turn, you know, they want to keep it long and strong. So they're kind of contradicting. So good to kind of have that understanding. If you haven't played around with some over direction and removing massive amounts of weight through the sides, I encourage you to get a mannequin head and give it a try.
We have a question from Tanya, who's wondering what products you like to use for styling. And Tanya, we've got a whole bunch of products here at Bumble and Bumble that are specifically made for all different kinds of curly to wavy to coily textures. I'll show it to you in just a minute after Mark Anthony does this technique for a moment. I'll show you the products that we're using today so you can get a screenshot of them if you want. But essentially, every product that is being used today is part of the Bumble and Bumble franchise.
For the most part, I like moistures. I like some sort of hold. Of course, determining the weight of the hair, how much it can handle. You know, her hair is finer. I'm going to go in with the mousse. You know, there's a big comeback with mousses. I think they're incredibly light. It's a great delivery system for products with hold without adding that extra weight or oil.
Oh, Tanya's being more specific. She wants to know what products you use on your hair because she says you have beautiful curls.
Thank you. Similar. What I'm going to use on her is similar to what I use daily. So what's in my hair, and it's definitely a little mess, but kind of a normal thing. It's just the defining cream. Literally, these are my styling products. And, you know, of course, I'll go a couple days. This is typically refreshing it. Sometimes on the second or third day, you know, that's about all I go. But the mousse is a great addition day after day. This is definitely an additive in there at times. The Ultra Rich, just a little more moisture in the ends. Gosh, now I'm concerned what the back of my head looks like.
Don't worry, I'm not filming the back of your head. But it looks good, just to let you know.
As you can see, some of these areas inside, I'm going through and taking out some weight further up the shaft. And of course, that in turn becomes an internal layer, right? Spending a year or so in the apprenticeship with a razor, it changes a lot of the basic knowledge with cutting. I feel I can say we don't use a lot of strong over direction. You rarely see blunt cutting, even with our scissors. It just guides us in a way that we just love the way it helps to move the hair around and just takes that weight off the root. You're able to leave layers long, removing some of the weight, which of course lifts it. But you're also able to detail in certain areas if you have, you know, low density in the front. You quite simply leave that out, leave it alone, and you come right in what's behind that and kind of remove some weight through here.
Do you mind if we do a little turn toward the mirror?
Do that. Give me one moment. So that was just keeping the ends strong. Again, I'm going to come in and lift up. Work some layers in. Again, this is that corner that we want to keep strong. That approach as well. Every time coming down, closing the scissor. It's a little heavy in through here. So I want to scoop out a little bit from behind. That triangle shape, this is actually a good view to talk about that. That triangle shape that so often occurs. I feel it's often misinterpreted. People go in, they try to layer more, taking the weight out of the top to reduce that triangular shape. I feel it's a bit of an illusion. If you scoop this front out, bringing the frame further back, you narrow, right? Scoop this out, it narrows, you immediately alleviate that triangular shape. Filling this in, you kind of see how that shape comes into play. But if we continue to scoop, keep your corner strong, it narrows without overly layered. These are the areas I obsess on. You know, I'm pulling from the back, from the hairline sometimes, depending on what's going on there. Sometimes the growth pattern shoots the hair forward. I always watch that. Right, all this is coming from the back. Sometimes I'll just detail some of these. If these are excessive, it takes all the detail away from your face frame. Some of these straighter areas that maybe have been colored too much, I can address some of those. Again, we're just further pulling this back. Going to scoop out some of the middle, keeping our corner strong. Still fat here, right? You have a little bit of weight. This is where I'm going to isolate and work a layer into that area. This is one of the things that, we really try working the eye here at Bumble. It's something been drilled into my head. I'm just relaying this knowledge that's been given to me and passing it along. As this is getting frizzy, this is where the client starts to get a little nervous sometimes. And this is where I start liking it more. I can see it more. It guides me, right? You want to use a comb, cool, not, right? So, kind of working a concave layer, starting from there and seeing what that does. And I'll isolate certain areas. Working around the head, it's almost like I'm working in pie sections. Really not working below the occipital for the layers. Doesn't reach, so You can see our length dropping out there. Coming in a little deeper. Working up towards our length. Not going too far down the shaft. Remember, this is the surface. I like to keep the surface strong. And even when we're working a razor, if we're working excessive weight removal underneath the bridle ridge, this is where I'll attack the weight, and then I'll immediately switch up on the surface and keep that more solid. A lot of times people are watching us cut with the razor and they see this sort of haphazard approach. All the while we are looking, we are paying attention, we are seeing the density, what weight needs to be removed. One thing I'm always doing with the apprentices is taking them away from this 1 foot view, right? Our eyes get blurred. Have them step back and look, and this is why I love the mirror. It's a little bit further than typical, but I actually like that more because you get a little bit more sense of the silhouette. You're not honing in on every little curl. Sometimes with these areas, I'm not only coming from the front, but from behind. And again, it's directly related to our razor work. Front, sometimes we'll come from behind. Again, very simple, straightforward, classic approach. Nothing fancy. Quite visual, of course. I have to say, I really have enjoyed seeing all the super technical work that's being put out there now. I feel we got to this point where this freehand approach, I don't know if I want to say got out of control, but it's pushed to the limits. But keep in mind, those people usually got there with having a strong base. Again, here we are, slightly below the chin, starting, topping our scissors down, scooping out the center, going a little bit more aggressive, and now I'm lightening up as I get towards the ends to keep our corner strong. And I actually see there's a little piece of hair in there that's kind of guiding me. There's always something guiding us, right? It's not your technical, grab this piece and do that sort of thing, but we can see what's going on. And again, I have to constantly reminding the apprentices, you know, it might look haphazard, but there is a process, there is something I'm seeing. It's not the guide in the traditional sense. I see, you know, curls kind of coming up through here, and then simply this curl, even though we cut it on an angle, maybe it was a little bit lighter or heavier. Nonetheless, it's a little excessive. And scoop it out a little bit. And it's gentle. I'm not pulling, yanking on the hair.
Oh, someone named Erlo Hair wants to know, how do you stop the, quote, dog ears in curly hair from happening?
What goes on there typically?
Yeah. And how do you stop that from happening?
So, as you can see, I'm slicing out this hairline right here, right? So, quite often, if you start, you know, in this range, this has a strong propensity to shrink up. Boom, right? Then it builds up. If you continue that with each subsequent section behind that, you're just gonna follow that width. So, this is a great question. Keeping this longer, first off, helps that. Sometimes as it's growing and over here I can get into that as we see the frizz. So often in hairdressing, we go somewhere and we're kind of nervous and we don't want to continue because we're scared. When quite often we need to take it that one step further, that's when it gets better, right? So all of a sudden, sometimes you get over here like, oh, I don't want to, you know, perhaps just a little bit of weight removal. Commonly, that's how I approach it. So in this instance, I might pick up the area just behind this, which sometimes starts to get a little wide. And I might come underneath it, or in the middle of it, not on the surface of it, right? So if we have our section, it's weak here, so I'm not going to approach that. I might come a little bit in the middle, a little further up. I see that little excess there, and then it's going to knock off that corner. So quite often it's too heavy. It's not short enough. It could be many things. The idea is to look, analyze, and move the hair around. Always a tricky area in the recessions, right? You have this horizontal plane, quickly coming into a vertical plane. And then we cut this diagonal line that's supposed to marry them. Then we're also quite often realizing there's a void. So what happens? There's a gap, right? So we're having this approach that we expect everything to work out beautifully. Of course, it's not going to. So you have to adjust, right? So very quickly, I see this top being separated with what's below. Some of it is that the curls are straighter. So the top is shrinking up, there's less weight, gravity is released. This area underneath is pulling down. So when they're separated, they visually look wider. But if you have the whole profile, if you widen the whole profile, those dog ears don't stand out as much. I'll get into that a little bit more as I work through. It is a common question though, and it's a common problem. You know, it's seen all the time.
Erlo Hair, that was a fantastic question, and stick around because as the cut continues, Mark Anthony is going to have even more examples of ways to avoid that, but that was a really fantastic answer so far. Thank you, Mark Anthony. And she says thank you as well.
Yeah, I'm going to remove that back, get that out of there. Just want to be working with the frame right here. And this is also where we see how things match up. drier, frizzier, it's a little shorter. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. The balance. Of course, you're not seeing me take a piece, pull it, measure, whatnot. I'm not too worried about that. Of course, I will make sure it's balanced in the end. But as you can see, there's moments where I'm slowing down, cutting more. I'll speed up, cutting less, and I might slow down again or exit softly. So it's not always a consistent stroke, right? Maybe a little stronger, move on, slow down a little bit, exit, leaving that corner strong.
This is what we talk about a lot at Bumble, which is called rhythm. The rhythm at which we're using the blade to create the effects that we're wanting to create. So sometimes you're moving the blade really fast to get through a section. Other times you're going a little slow. And this is also going to help to promote strength or diffusion of strengths. And something else that Mark Anthony just said is more or less written on our wall, which is, the eye is sharper than the scissor, which is something we talk about a lot at Bumble. It's something that Mark Anthony just mentioned, is that we don't necessarily work with guides where we try and match everything up perfectly. We trust our eye, because sometimes the lengths may measure up perfectly from one side to the other, but based on the way that a body is or their head shape is or whatever, the lengths may be even when measured, but don't live and look balanced on the person. So you have to use your eye.
There's a huge determining factor as well with my approach, and it's understanding their lifestyle, it's understanding what they do. If she told me she blow dries this 90% of the time, wears it curly just a little, a few times, I would change my approach. I know I can get away with a little bit more knowing she wears her hair curly. Right? I never blow out my hair. My hair, I love with the razor. You can never put enough texture in the hair. It springs up. Right? It's not going to be something that's going to be like, the silhouette is altered. But again, I'm looking all in here. I want this to be a little bit narrower. So a lot of it is just scooping out some of this hair coming from behind. This is definitely, again, I mentioned it before, this is a pet peeve where, you hadn't cut somebody, and I don't obsess over other people's haircuts typically, but when there's that tendril off to nowhere, a lot of times it's because they pulled the hair from the back, right? Therefore, again, I'll take the whole section, spin it, shake it. I want to see what's coming from the back, because this is what they do. They move their hair, right? It's going all over the place. It's not this perfect. All right, again, this is the back. This is that layer, that concave layer. I'm going to work out for the pie sections.
And if you are joining us again, we are at Bumble and Bumble University in New York City. We're in the library, and I am Christian, one of the educators for Bumble and Bumble, and we are with Mark Anthony, who has been a hairstylist at the Bumble Salon in New York City for 21 years, and also is one of our lead stylists and lead educators, and he oversees the apprenticeship program. You're getting so much love, Mark Anthony, and Denisa Andrea says she loves your approach.
Oh, cool, thank you. It's fun, that's all we want our industry to be. It's just to get through your day and have great conversations, do great cuts, and in between all that, lots of learning. Whether it's home inspiration, whether it's forums like this, salon apprenticeship programs. I feel like I'm hearing things are coming back with some of that. I know ours is back, and that's quite exciting. You don't realize how much it feeds you as the stylist, as the educator.
So, Saeed Zaka wants to know, what are you putting in the hair?
So this is prep. This is essentially a detangler. I'm re-wetting with prep instead of water I have my water bottle over there. It's just sucking up all the moisture. So traditional water isn't gonna help in this situation. I feel jumping to a light detangler primer.
Yeah, this is actually a very, very light product. It's lighter than water, and it just adds a light conditioning to the hair. So it's not gonna weigh the hair down or feel like you've got any kind of buildup in the hair. It's very light and gorgeous, and it smells wonderful. Do we do courses? We do courses. We have courses at our university, which is where we are broadcasting live from. And we are also soon to be launching a digital education. So stay tuned for more on that very soon. Good evening from Romania. Hello, Christina in Romania.
Before I drop this section, this is a classic section, 90 degrees out of the head. Determining my starting point. Simply working from there. Now, if you see, it's quite transparent. You know, if I were to go into the middle, I'm being very delicate. It doesn't scare me that it's transparent to do something, but I'm obviously not going to go in there and hit it hard. So get back to that length. And a lot of times we like to try to do them both at the same time, weight removal and length. It does save time. I know when we're working with the apprentices, y'all remember combing. But then you add on weight removal on top of removing the length, and then it becomes a whole lot of combing.
Jahaira Gonzalez Miranda is watching with my students from Florida.
Oh, fantastic.
That's fantastic, yeah.
We're having one of our first sunny days here.
Yeah.
It's very exciting to hit almost 70 degrees, I think, today. So again, first time I'm cutting her, I'm being a little more cautious, taking notice of the release of weight and the length and how it springs up. Right? Sometimes we don't know how much volume, how much bounce is going to be created through just a little bit of length. Hers is acting quite predictably, right? It's not jumping on me, it's balancing out well.
Jasmine, if you want to learn more, or any of you that happen to be watching and want to learn more about the launch of our digital education, follow us on Instagram at BumblePro, 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 and you will learn all kinds of updates on what's going on with our education very soon. And when you come to the States, reach out to us. We'd love to meet you in person.
So I'm breaking the crown up into essentially 3 sections. We have your central section and then one left and right of that. So what I'm noticing, the weakness from the area around the ear, it's quite strong. So again, paying attention, that's going to guide me. So maybe I don't drop as far down, right? Add a little bit more hair to that. Simple stuff, basic stuff. Right? That little slice of a 1/2 inch, filled that gap in, made it a little bit more solid at the base.
Tara says that after 16 years in to this business, she started losing her spark for hair, but this video is lighting her back up.
Oh, so fantastic, it really is amazing to hear. And again, through the pandemic, I was right there with you, as many of us were. And, you know, the whole client experience was one thing, education was essentially gone. You know, we all picked up our mannequin heads and, you know, maybe played a little bit. I honestly hadn't touched a mannequin in, I can honestly say, over 20 years. And I found the value in it, I really did. And it's snobbish of me or whatever. Here in New York, typically there was no shortage of models. There's something to benefit, you know, from an apprentice who has never cut hair or never done that cut. You can go in there and you're not fearful, right? You can go in and do a shag haircut and loads of hair can drop off, and your approach isn't altered because your client's energy. So there is a benefit. I highly recommend graduating towards Real Humans. It tells its own story. And the fear is good. Little fear in life never hurt. So again, just detailing slightly. Again, simple. I know we're getting close with time here. I am going to re-prep just to balance out the porosity. So these areas around the front that have been colored are sucking up that moisture.
This is prep. It's a primer. It's lighter than water, and it just adds a light amount of moisture. Ooh, but Mark is using something else. So show us what this is. This is called Ultra Rich, and it is a hydrating treatment. It is incredible. It's got hyaluronic acid in it, and you just work it into the hair. Mark Anthony is actually twisting the hair to coax the curl back to life after all the combing that it's been through. And this Ultra Rich treatment, it's got hyaluronic acid that's going to actually hydrate the hair for up to 72 hours. Now he's adding this much of defining cream. And defining cream is also going to help build that curl back up while also providing the moisture that the hair requires. And notice how Mark Anthony is gently raking it through, working it into the hair, and gently twisting it to coax the curl back into life.
Product distribution is obviously key. Most of us know it. A lot of our clients don't. All right, so as you can see, I'm working the mids to ends. I haven't worked anything into the root, and you know what? That's what most of our clients do. And it's frizzy, it's imbalanced. Texture is dry at the root, over product, too much product on the ends. So I encourage, educate your client.
Yes, educate your client is huge. Teaching your client everything that you know about what's best for their hair is going to empower them and help them to feel more capable of creating the looks that you're creating for them, so they can love their hair every single day. And that also creates a beautiful relationship of trust with your client that will keep them coming to you for years.
Never forget the hairline.
Yeah, got to work that product into the hairline as well.
I don't encourage that being the first douse. And if any of you have had teenagers, have cut, you know, younger individuals that are starting with product, they take all that product, they just hit the front, and there's nothing in the back, and it's greasy in the front. And try to reverse that a little bit. I work through the ends, right? And then towards the end when there's nothing on my hands for the most part, yet there is still a little bit.
Jasmine says your work is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And I can guarantee it'll be piecing through, playing with, elevating. I definitely want to lift this up a little bit. So there's one final product I'm going to put in just before I dry, and that is going to be the mousse. I'm going to get to that in a second. This back has a lot more potential. When I jump to a larger comb, I don't want to pull out this curl beam that we're going to dry it in a little bit. And I also want to point out this last section. This is so common in an area that I come back through. If you look at, oh, the light's coming through a little bit better.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
If you look at what this central section, how broad it gets down here, sometimes all it needs is one more pass. Right? Again, this is that last moment, just went a touch further. It would have brought it all together. This central section, strong down below. I'm not looking to shorten anything up drastically. But again, as you see, this encompasses most of the central area of the back. So I encourage, really pay attention. This is where maybe you can get in with a little rate removal. This is an area that you have the opportunity to be a little bit more aggressive. You can honestly take this area all the way up. You just concentrate on the center. You're not moving the weight from the sides, which we have to be careful because she is lighter in the frontal areas. Using my fingers to kind of rake through, to gather, not worrying about precision. There is a moment for that, and I'm all for it. Again, if I knew she blew this out straight, I'd be more conscious of that. But you can see how the weight that was in the lower area just got pulled up through some layers throughout the center. Right? And this back is, all these shag haircuts that we're seeing, it's very similar with that approach, the concave layer. You're just being more aggressive, right? But with this, you can be more aggressive and lift the back without having to destroy the integrity of the front. And don't get me wrong, when it works on an individual, a nice shag haircut, it's beautiful. Quite often the clients don't want to commit, so you can kind of, take some baby steps. Be a little bit more aggressive with removing the corner. Introduce them to little moments of that. All right, so you can see what we can do in the back to help pick that up. I'm going to dampen it once more, just to apply our mousse. I'll take the excess off my hands into the hair. So again, I'm being conscious of a nice golf ball size. I'm going to focus on one side. And I always tell my clients to split up into quadrants, split up into 2 ponytails, work it through. Grab another amount, pay attention. Is it a quarter size, nickel size, golf ball size? Now I'm working it into the right side. Smoothing it down the hair shaft, working it into the ends. I'm actually going to take a little bit more in the front. Like this here.
I love how mindful and precise you are about your application, making sure that you're really getting it where it needs to go in order to achieve the results that you want to see. But also the time that you're taking to massage it into the hair is enabling it to get the full benefit of the product that you're using.
Glad to hear it doesn't look too chaotic.
No, it's actually like choreography. Looks really nice. Deliberate.
I know we're running out of time. Simply here, I'm gonna have her slide back so her neck is on the base of the chair. Just get comfortable. This is tricky sometimes with certain people with neck problems, but we're good here today. I'm not going to dry it too much. I'm just going to take some moisture out of it. And so you can imagine air drying this to a certain point, taking it from there will be best. My pressure versus heat, you know, I'm always adjusting depending on the situation. This is high pressure, medium heat. It's going to dry up pretty fast, obviously knowing while I'll be playing with it and seeing how it's happening. Using the diffuser cup to do most of the work. Picking up the roots gently. Flipping her over is an option. A lot of our clients do that typically, right?
Love. You're getting lots of love.
That moisture usually hides in the nape. We'll get that a little bit. Not focusing too much on that. Kind of lift it up off the root. Go back in. This helps get the front hairline.
What curl number would you say she is?
Oh, I love this question. Not really. So, she has, I'd say, an S pattern. There's no coil here. It's finer. The porosity is high, probably due to coloring, heat styling. You know, probably a 3. But again, I'll leave that for the comment board to discuss. And by all means, please do so.
Christina Dinu says, what beautiful hair your model has.
Just needed a little bit of weight taken off of it. Fling it back.
Ooh.
Spin around the seat. Sorry about that.
Getting lots of likes.
And this is the area, the time when I play around, see certain areas that the ends might not have sprung as much, where the weight concentrates. Individual curls, finding those areas. Sometimes the color is dictating what I'm cutting, if I'm trying to break up some of the lighter areas. You can see where this just goes on and on until your time is up. And again, at another time, we could lift this whole area back up and take this whole step further. Perhaps that's, the moment with the nervous client, you're introducing them again. You then, second visit, bring them back, show them a little bit more what you can do.
You're getting so much love, Mark Anthony. I'm noticing that the product has brought so much more depth to the lightened color It just looks like richer. The hair has such beautiful reflection and consistent wave pattern or curl pattern from scalp to ends. It looks gorgeous. All that shine. Great job teaching, Cheryl says.
Thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed my time. Absolute pleasure to have done this for you. Once again, thank you so much to Hairbrain and all of you for watching. I much appreciate it. Thank you to the model and Christiane for filming.
Hello. Let's see her from the front. And then if you want to maybe remove the cape, we'll see what she looks like. Beautiful. All right, well, thank you so much. Oh, Christina says it's a creative cut. That's the beauty of curly hair cutting. You don't have to be millimeter precise.